said there's nothing more than I got no meeting. Go ahead.
Sir? Yes, go ahead and start. Just turn your video on, just leave your sound off right now. I mean, where you're talking, you can listen to it, just don't.
Got a lot of echo, Mayor.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Go ahead and get started. I'm gonna call the roll for Ms. Sue and this back to her, and I'll be calling the roll for motions. This time, just say aye if you're at the meeting. Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Farley.
Here.
Commissioner Jarman.
Aye.
Commissioner Goodrow.
Aye.
Commissioner Lake.
Aye.
Commissioner Willard. We got to talk. We ain't got out. Over here. Commissioner Willard's here with me. I'll check his video. Commissioner Logan.
Oh,
Commissioner Logan.
did you say Logan?
Logan.
It's you,
You're
Sylvester.
here. I see you. Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Oglesby.
Here.
Commissioner Perkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Powers.
Aye.
Commissioner Dale Reeves. Commissioner Dale Reeves, are you on? Yeah. Commissioner Reeves, I'm unmuting yours.
Dale, your mic is muted.
Commissioner Steve Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Betsy Rice.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray Seals. Aye. Commissioner Robert Seals.
Aye.
Commissioner Bill Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnny Walker. Commissioner Larry Watkins. Aye. All right, all present and accounted for 19. At this time, we'll have our invocation and pledge of allegiance. Brother David Reeves will give our invocation.
All right, let's pray. In Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 2, Paul told us to pray for our leaders, for all men and for kings and those that are in authority, that we may have a quiet and peaceable life. And then he said, this is good and acceptable in the sight of God, our Savior. We certainly want to pray for the leaders of this county and appreciate the work you do. And then he goes on to say, who will have all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. One God, one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself a ransom for all. How thankful we are. We come to you, Lord, thanking you, Lord, for this commission, thanking you for the place you've given us to live in the great state of Tennessee and in Fayette County. Lord, we pray for all those that lead us here, that you would give them wisdom, and Lord, help us to always realize that our decisions need to be based upon the word of God, upon which this great country was founded. We love you and we praise you, and we just ask for them to do the right things in everything that they do. In Jesus' name, amen.
us to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty, justice for all.
justice for all.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you've got in your packets approval of minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to be made to those? Entertain a motion.
So moved, Commissioner Seals.
Commissioner Sills,
Second, Commissioner Powers.
second, Commissioner Powers. All right, this will be a roll call vote. Please vote yes if you're in favor. Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Leggett.
Hunter Winfrey.
Join the meeting.
1 second. Commissioner Leggett. Commissioner Leggett. All right, Commissioner Lillard. Commissioner Logan. Commissioner Logan.
Your microphone's muted, Sylvester.
Sylvester, you're
Aye.
everything. Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Oglesby.
Aye.
Commissioner Perkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Powers.
Aye.
Commissioner Dale Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Steve Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Betsy Rice.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray Seals. Commissioner Robert Seals.
Aye.
Commissioner Bill Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnny Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Larry Watkins. Aye. Motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, there's one bit of housekeeping we need to do. And this is adopt the motion we made last meeting, that this is an essential meeting. Give me 1 second, I'll throw this on the screen. Screen. Folks, give me just a second. Yeah. Motion on your screen is what we need to make to abide by the governor's order. I'll read through it. If I can have somebody make the motion after I get through it. Fayette County Commission, in accordance with Tennessee Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16, has determined that having this meeting by electronic means is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Fayette County citizens in the COVID-19 outbreak. Provisions of Tennessee Code, Section 8-44-108C, stresses open meetings guidelines.
I can't see it.
And the meeting will be conducted in a manner consistent with Section 19 of the Tennessee Constitution allowing monitoring votes.
Commissioner Norton would move to accept that.
Okay. And
Rice,
Commissioner
second.
Howard,
by Bill.
Commissioner Rice, second that. Be a roll call vote also. Commissioner Davis,
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Leggett,
Aye.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yeah.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Norton,
Aye.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Powers,
Aye.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Rice,
Aye.
Commissioner Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Aye.
Commissioner Bill Walker,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Aye.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Aye.
Motion passes. Right. Next item on the agenda tonight, the election of notaries. Those have been reviewed by the clerk. Entertain a motion to approve.
Commissioner Powers, vote.
Commissioner Reeves, second.
Commissioner Dale Reeves.
Steve Reeves.
Oh, excuse me, Steve Reeves. Okay. Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Ben Barlow,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Bill Walker,
Yeah.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
All right, next item on the agenda tonight is Board of Health. And gentlemen, there were some errors in the list that sent out, so for people who were not available. So rather than pass that tonight, we're going to wait that till next month. Next item on the agenda tonight are financial reports. If you, once they're in the packet, you get with the appropriate vision. Next item is reports of departments and agencies. I've got a couple of things in the mayor's report I need to go quickly with. Guys, over the weekend, we had a severe storm Friday and some more rain over the weekend. Courthouse and many of the government offices got hit pretty hard.
Hey, Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
you get a lot of feedback and we're getting every other word. Possibly the extra iPad is creating feedback. So, I'm not hearing anything.
Give me 1 second. Let me see if somebody's not on.
Hey, this right here says extra pad here.
You're on mute.
iPad there, no, I don't.
Where'd this one go?
There's one Ray brought.
That did it.
Let me start over. Is this any better?
Yes.
Over the weekend, we had some storms that came through summer. And my office as well as the courthouse was hit. And I'm still getting a reverb. If somebody got more than one item on?
Mr. Mayor, you're mute. Mute. Can't hear you.
It appears, Jim, that I'm not getting any video from him either. It's just locked up.
Y'all not hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get through this. Over the weekend, we had storms come through that hit the courthouse offices, as well as my office. Internet's down was down across all offices this morning. As of right now, my office is still affected somewhat. Phones are up. The county clerk's office, Ms. Sue's, is phones and computers are down. And just so if you get a call from somebody, they're going to be down probably through Thursday. So we've got to have new servers, fried a bunch of stuff. They work off computers hooking back to Nashville. Without that, they can't do business. So they'll be there tomorrow doing some things that they can do in the office, but won't be able to serve the public. That being said, that glass partitions have been put up in front on a number of the offices. And as soon as they get comfortable with the process on how to deal with the public, the doors should be opening somewhat in some of the offices. Trustees office and the county clerk's office may well open up, I would assume, fairly soon, because they'll have basically a barrier between from the public to them. The piece of glass is what it amounts to. Anyway, we want to let you know about that. I've had some comments or some questions on updates on animal shelter. I sent out an email to a couple of folks earlier, just to let you know where it was, but where we are, we talked to the gentleman who owns the property in the industrial park. He's interested in selling us. He's agreeable to it. I've told him how much property, I've told him where it was. He's good with that. I sent him a map just so that he can eyeball what we're talking about. Haven't heard back from him, but he went on to the point to say that if we go ahead and survey it, and he was good with the picture I've sent him, when he tells me that, then we can start moving forward with the purchase. And that would be the first step on moving forward on the animal shelter at the industrial park. That'll give us about 3.5 acres that we should be able to grow on. Great location next door to the health department and across the road from Fayette High School. The next thing I need to let you know is today we got notified that we were approved for the loans that we talked about budget last year for the ambulance, the fire truck, and the sheriff's vehicles. We have to notify Nashville, and they have to give us official approval. We received that today. We can move forward with those loans, and hopefully in the next couple of 3 weeks we can get those finalized. Today I extended the emergency declaration one more week. As you remember, we have to do those weekly. So we've gone from yesterday, well, actually I extended it yesterday. It goes to next Monday. So we'll continue that as long as the governor has his in place. But starting next month with the committee meetings, unless there's some members who want me to do otherwise, I'd like to go ahead and start having some of these meetings in public again. The governor's raised his number up to 50. I think we, particularly here in the courtroom, we can socially distance enough for a few feet between everybody, and we can start moving forward. Hopefully this is dying down somewhat. If it continues to go, hopefully in June, we can have a full county commission up here. And not sure exactly how we'll lay it out. We may sort of spread out around the courtroom a little bit, but at least we'll be all in the same room and we can move meetings a little bit more like we're used to. Anyway, that's all I've got right now. And I don't see the sheriff on board online. And looking down through here, Wayne, you, Public Works doesn't have anything right now. Board of Education, I don't have anybody online. And Planning and Development is not here. The next item would be Development Committee, Commissioner Farley.
Development Committee met on the 7th. Present was myself, Reeves, Powers, Walker, and Seals. Just two things on the agenda was a budget amendment, Public Works, moving funds around. There's no change to the fund balance. And the second one was review of the following departments' budgets. All of them were approved by vote and moved on to the Budget Committee.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda tonight is Health and Welfare Committee, Commissioner Reeves.
Mr. Chairman, we met on May 5th. Commissioners present, Leggett, Perkins, German, myself, Seals, and Goodrow. We did review an ambulance bid or a bid to pave the parking lot there at the ambulance where we store the ambulances. The bid came in for $13,699 from Fowler. We approved that, passed it on to budget. And then the rest, what we went over is our budget for the county for the rest of the year. I guess we'll take those up at the appropriate time. That's all we had.
All right, thank you. Personnel Committee, Commissioner Lillard. Okay. Education Committee, Commissioner Akins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did meet on May the 11th. Present were Commissioner Watkins, Commissioner Norton, Commissioner Bill Walker, Commissioner Dale Reeves, and myself. We had two budget items. We went over the preservation of records that had no changes in their last year's budget, and the library budget, which was about $3,800, roughly above last year's. But we approved both of these and sent them to budget, and that was all we had at that meeting.
Okay. Would you like to go over a little bit about last night's meeting?
We can. Last night we met, let's see, Commissioner Larry Watkins, Commissioner Jim Norton, Commissioner Johnny Walker, Commissioner Dale Reeves were present. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We went over the schools fund, the school fund 141, 142, and 143. We actually had no members from the school board there, but to explain them to us much, but since they were using only monies from their fund balance and no new funds, the committee approved this and sent it to budget also.
Okay.
I think that's all.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Next item on agenda tonight is Criminal Justice and Public Safety, Commissioner Rice. Ms. Betsy, I believe you're on mute still. There you go.
Mr. Chairman, the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee met on May 4th with all 6 members present, Commissioners Norton, Perkins, Leggett, Seals, Goodrow, and I. We had a lengthy list of budget proposals for next year to go over. Those came from Judge Gallagher, from the Circuit Court, the Chancery Court, the sheriff's department, the county fire department, the emergency services. And we went over all of those budget proposals. We approved all of them and sent them on to the budget committee. And we had no other business than those.
Okay, thank you. Next item on agenda tonight's budget committee, Commissioner German. And Commissioner German, before you get started, I found out that when you get down to all those budget listeds that are all pretty much moving money around, if you want to have one major motion to approve all of them, as long as we list them all in order, then that will suffice for our auditors, rather than each of us individually vote on every one of them.
That's good. So I can just go over them and then we'll get down to the very bottom, 10.3.6.22. We can do all of those at once.
I think so. Let me get back to my main agenda. 22. You probably no, sir. You probably go down to 1 to 18.
Okay. Well, that'll be a big help.
Yes, sir.
All right, let me get started. We met 2 times this past month, May the 12th and May the 19th. The commissioners that were present were Steve Reeves, Rice, Oglesby, Lillard, Logan, Farley, Ray Seals, Dacus, and German. I'm not going to read the minutes. When we go down this agenda, we'll cover everything that was in the minutes. So the first budget amendment is 6.3 County Clerk Reserve Request. County Clerk has requested $8,785 for data processing equipment. That money will come from an account that is restricted for finance. So it's zero change to the fund balance, and the budget committee did approve it. So we'll just wait to vote on it though, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, 6.4. Sale of fire equipment. That's on page 23. We had some used fire equipment that we were able to sell, $15,004. That money will go into fire prevention and control under motor vehicles for the same amount. Zero change to the fund balance. Budget committee did approve that. 6.5 stimulus money. Because of the COVID-19 virus, we got a grant for $47,894. That money will go into the ambulance department for drugs and medical supplies for the same amount. So it's zero change in the fund. 6.6 year-end cleanup. This goes from page 25 through 31. Just line item adjustments, year-end adjustments. Zero change to the fund balance. The budget committee did approve that. 6.7 potential vacation payout. You remember last year, I know we did it last year, maybe more years than that, but the auditors require us to know what our exposure is if everyone in the county wanted their sick time and their vacation pay. So it has to be in the budget under every department. If you'll turn all the way to page 37, you'll see that that figure is $776,810. It shows a hit to the fund balance, but of course we all know that that money would not be spent at one time. The budget committee did approve that. 6.8. Somebody have a question? 6.8 airport, taking $4,000 out of the airport maintenance program and moving it to the engineering services for the airport, $4,000 in and out, just a line item change. Budget committee approved this on March the 10th. We hadn't had a county commission meeting since, so some of these were done back in March. 6.9 court clerk reserve request. Court clerk needs some data processing equipment, $3,700. That'll come from an account that's restricted for administration of justice. So there's zero change to the fund balance. Budget committee approved that March the 10th. 6.10. A few little line item budget changes. These were actually back before our March meeting. Budget, there's zero change to the fund balance. The budget committee did approve that on March the 10th. 6.11. This is again line item adjustments. Zero change to the fund balance, just year-end cleanup. And the budget committee did approve that March the 10th. 6.12, temporary litter employee. We're going to take the money out of the line item for foreman and put it in temporary personnel and a little bit in the overtime pay. The amount is $5,560. Zero change to the fund balance. The development committee approved that back on March the 9th. The budget committee approved it on March 10th. 6.13, insurance and policy salary supplement. Really, most you'll see here when in the compensation insurance under employee benefits, it was all lumped together. So at the year end, it's being dispersed out to the different departments, sheriff's department, the jail, fire department, ambulance. Zero change to the fund balance. Criminal justice, public safety approved it on March the 10th, and the budget committee approved it also on March the 10th. 6.14, this is year-end cleanup for Fund 116, which is our solid waste. It is an extra $100,000 though that they're going to have to spend because of the increase in trash. Rest of it are just line item adjustments. It will, their fund balance will take a hit of $126,000, leaving the fund balance in the solid waste of $998,000. Budget committee did approve this. 6.15, potential vacation payout, again, like we did with Fund 101. This is for the people that work at the solid waste. We have to know what that amount of exposure is. You'll notice it is $23,400 that will on paper show that it comes off the fund balance. Budget committee did approve that. 6.16, Fund 122. This is our drug control fund. It's a separate account, just year-end line item adjustments, zero change to that fund balance, and that was approved by the budget committee. 6.17, Public Works, Fund 131. They needed some more money in the line item for diesel and gasoline, and they took it out of the excess in the liability insurance for the same amount. So it did not change their fund balance. It was approved by the development committee and the budget committee. 6.18, year-end cleanup for Fund 171, which is our capital projects fund. Year-end adjustments to the line items. You'll notice there's zero change to the fund balance, and the budget committee did approve that. Okay, is that as far as, can we go ahead and vote on all of those now, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
All right, I make a motion that we approve 6.3 through 6.18.
Harley seconds.
Who made the second, please?
Harley.
Okay. 1 second. All right, this will be roll call votes. Commissioner Dakins?
Yes.
Commissioner Farley?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett?
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard? Commissioner Logan?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves?
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Bill Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
All right, 6.19, this is the ambulance department paving that needs to be done. We had two bids. You can see on page 59 that Fowler Paving Company was the low bidder. And it was approved by the Health and Welfare Committee and approved by the Budget Committee. Make a motion, we approve.
Second by Steve Reeves.
Second. All right. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Bill Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins. Motion passes.
Okay, 6.20, landfill post-closure agreement. That's on pages 60 through 70. What it amounts to, part of our landfill program, Tennessee requires that all the landfills have assurances in place in case of a cleanup that might happen out there. The state defines that amount in needed every year, but that is adjusted downward as the time passes on. The county is given two options to cover this requirement. You can either purchase a bond or guarantee that we will clean up the amount. And it's been in the years past, many years, the county's always chosen just to guarantee the cleanup in case that does happen. Budget Committee did approve this. And if you're interested to know what that amount of money is, it is on page 68. We actually have two separate contracts because it's two separate landfills actually. But I make a motion, we approve it.
Dale Reeves seconds.
Okay. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Bill Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Yes.
and Commissioner Larry Watkins. Motion passes.
All right, 621, this is Safer Fire Grant. That's on page 71. FEMA has grants now. This particular one is a 3-year grant for hiring full-time firefighters instead of having, just volunteers. The idea is to try to help the counties staff these rural fire stations with a full-time person. And the way this grant works, it pays 75% of the expenses the first year, 75% the second year. Year 3, it drops to 35%. And of course, year 4 and on, if you still want to do it, we're on our own.
That's it. There you go.
Now that under first year, the cost of the county would be 221,000, year two, 196,000. Year three, when they only pay 35%, you're looking at 469,000. And then if we're on our own, if we continue it, $717,000 a year. The budget committee discussed this a good bit, but we did not come with a recommendation. So at this time, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you for discussion.
Okay. Somewhere on here, I see Chief Hartfield.
Yes, sir, I'm on here.
Okay. There you are. Okay. Let me give just a quick summary on this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chief, let you give us more of the details on it. This is a FEMA grant. Chief, correct me if I'm wrong. These come either every year or every other year to do some firefighter hiring of firefighters.
Yes.
This year, apparently, they're looking to put more money into it. This is, like I said, is a 3-year grant, 4th year. There's nothing in the application would require us to continue doing it, but we will be in the full-time fire business going forward unless the commission decides to get out of it. The cost on this, and I've talked with Chief a little bit and trying to get a handle on what this first year cost would be. There's about $32,000 to $33,000 of possible turnouts we'd have to buy for those individuals. That would be from the start. Then you would have about 5 months of salary. All told, I think my numbers are running somewhere in the neighborhood of close to $100,000 for this first year. And then after that, it would be an annual basis on whatever we have to budget for it. This is only going to be one piece of the whole puzzle. We have a funding issue moving forward. There's been a lot of talk to do a fire fee. You know, I think there's some interest in that, but we have not made a decision on how to do it. We've got a need to coordinate with the cities on moving forward also, because it's going to affect them. I mean, if we bring on full-time ones, it hopefully would help them. But again, we have to talk with them on coordinating it, where these individuals are going to be placed. I'll let Chief go into it. And I think there's going to be some upsides on response time, but this is a big grant. So Chief, can you jump in on any of this?
I can. I'm here to answer questions. I've got the year 1, 2, and 3 laid out with like the extra fuel cost, utility cost, including the initial turnout cost, extra maintenance and facility maintenance and everything. That would stay current except for the initial turnout cost, which is the $32,500 that you mentioned. After that, a year 2 and 3, I've got $5,000 each year just in case we have to buy a set of turnouts or 2. They're running about $2,500 a set to outfit a firefighter. And that's where the breakdown of the 3 are. This grant is hopefully they're going to start processing and giving more money in the future. There is also a retention and recruitment grant that can be followed up with this to continue the service of these firefighters. I just feel that, you know, our response times will greatly increase, actually lower for that matter. And we would be able to help out all the cities as well as all the unincorporated county.
Okay.
Question.
Commissioner
Norton,
Norton? Yes, sir.
Chief, is that, are you proposing that all your employees are also going to be EMT qualified or higher?
Yes, sir. This grant, all the hired employees will be Fire 1 qualified, have already went through live fire, so we're not having to send them through basic fire training again, and also EMT, and then we'll encourage them to go further up in their EMS, schooling.
That's all I had now.
Okay.
Chief.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Claude Oglesby.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you. What's the total out of the pocket cost in year 4 after the grant goes away?
Year 4 and on would be approximately 716,917.
That's for 13, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question too. This is Commissioner Dacus.
Yes, sir.
Chief, have you done any preliminary numbers on what this would save the county on homeowners insurance?
Yes, sir. I spoke with several insurance companies here, and because of the ISO rating, you know, and they go off the rating plus credit and stuff on their each individual homeowners. But I've got a email from David Miller, which is the person that comes into the county and does the ISO inspection, and I quote this on this email says, there's millions of variables in play, but the marketplace has seen approximately 18% homeowner policy savings between a class 6 and a class 5, and a 13% savings between a class 5 and a class 4. We are at a 6 right now. This combined with doing the training center and stuff, I have no doubt will lower. I cannot sit here and tell you we're going to get it to exact a 4 or a 5, because every variable is gonna matter in that when it comes to the insurance. But it will definitely lower homeowners insurance, and both the insurance guys I spoke with, one is American National, the other is an insurance agency here in Fayette County. They both assured me, yes, it will definitely make a big, huge impact when you start lowering ISO and start getting all these, the fire department, the training center together.
But we don't have any numbers as far as $100,000. I mean, we don't have any numbers.
Because of what they explained to me, being so many million variables in each homeowner policy, they can't say what it's going to actually save each individual person.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Reeves, Steve Reeves.
The ISO rating, is it lowered across the county, or is it lowered close to the houses, the firehouses? Is it
in the county and in the unincorporated part of the county, Commissioner, it's a class 6 if you're within 5 miles of any fire station. Now, if you're in the city like Oakland, they've got a class 4. So if you're in the Oakland city limits, you carry a class 4 rating. If you're in the county, as long as you're within 5 miles of that fire station, you're a class 6.
But there's no guarantee those outside the 5 miles will have their ISO rating lowered. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And there are little pockets in the county that are outside that 5 miles from the stations. This will, the ISO will not change for them unless we start strategically placing a few other fire stations that will draw a circle and catch them as well.
So is there a way to determine how many people live outside that 6 miles that this is not going to benefit, other than the response time? I'm talking about benefit as far as insurance rating.
Yes, sir. There's a maps that has the 5 mile driving radius on it that will show the kind of pockets that are outside the circle. So we can get a generalized area of the little pockets within the county that are just outside that 5 miles, because it's 5 road miles.
Okay, and my next question, Ms. Mayor, and then I'll be quiet. Is this something that just popped up recently? Why didn't this go through our regular budget process? I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand the urgency here on this.
Part of the problem was that started going in March, and I wasn't aware. I don't guess I was aware of the deadline. And then it showed up, Chief, about a week and a half ago, that we were trying to submit it and found out the deadline was actually going to be tomorrow. Before we submitted it, I wanted to make sure the commission was on board. I don't disagree with you. This is not the way I wanted to do it. But this is something that at least wanted you to look at. One other thing I wanted to mention before I forget it is that after this year we can probably take a hit if we need to. But going forward, we will have to have a funding source for this, whether it's property tax, a fee or something. So that was what I was trying to talk about on the front end, that there's a bunch of different pieces in this, and this is one part of the package. Anyway.
Mayor,
Mr. Sills, Robert Sills.
Chief, and Chief both, a question and maybe a few comments and as it relates to it. First of all, this grant, as with any grants, would be a pretty arduous process. It's not something we would hear back on in the next 30, 60, even 90 days. We're probably talking about 6 months before we would know for sure if we have it. I understand that we would have to allocate the funds now for that, but in reality, the hit in FY21 would probably be somewhere in the 30-40% of that year one budget amount, correct?
That is correct.
And so I don't disagree either. I'm of the opinion, and I hadn't discussed this with anybody else, but I think it would be, and we may not have the option from a timing standpoint, but I think it would be very beneficial to look at incorporating this with the fee for the ambulance and EMS service as the funding mechanism for it going forward. And then we could really show a benefit both ways, I believe, as, you know, pairing those together. I don't know if there's been any consideration to that. I know it's been mentioned a little bit, but I think it would be an excellent use of resources to fund that with. That's just my 2 cents.
Commissioner Norton.
Yes, Chief, there's nothing binding on this grant, is there? If at the end of this 3-year period, if for whatever reason this comes up not fundable, there's nothing binding that says we have to maintain these personnel, is there?
No, sir. And as I spoke with Mayor Taylor, we would definitely have to put it in the contract that they signed, that they know in 3 years, there's a possibility that this will not be anymore.
I'm going
Okay.
Commissioner Leggett.
Commissioner Leggett.
If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor, didn't we approve applying for a grant under Chief Ray several years ago to do this same thing, and we didn't get the grant, as I recall, but we approved him to submit for a grant to allow us to fill some stations with full-time people. Am I mistaken about that?
No, you're correct. I think the grant at that time was actually like a 5-year grant. I think first 3 years are totally paid for, and year 4 and year 5, they progressively went down. I'm not sure if that one had a caveat at the end that we had to keep them in some flavor, but we did apply for one somewhat similar to this.
Yeah. Thank you.
I got a few questions.
Commissioner Farley?
First one is to the chief. Do you have an exit plan for what you'll do in year 4 if we can't afford to keep paying the full-time firemen and have to go back to volunteers?
Best thing I'm going to do is on the year 2, I'm going to start applying for that retention grant. Regardless of whether you tell me we can afford to keep them or not, you can apply on that second year for the 3rd year and try to get funding to be able to retain those firefighters you hire.
Okay, question number two, I got 3 total. Yes. If we have budget problems coming up next year or in the 3rd year, is there any way we can exit this grant without some sort of penalty?
That I cannot honestly answer on exiting it before the 3-year period's up.
Last question, which is always my next last question. If we're awarded this grant, do we have the right to turn it down at that time?
Yes, you do.
All right. I wouldn't have a problem approving it tonight, but if we didn't have a funding method in place by the time it was awarded to us, I'd be against it. I'm done.
Commissioner, just, and I think a couple other commissioners has some comments on the timing. Two things, is this is a federal grant and generally they like awarding these things at the very tail end of the fiscal year, their fiscal year, or the very beginning of the next fiscal year. Their fiscal year is from October 1 to September 30. And there was a comment on the amount of funding first year. The first year's funding, if we're into about 4 or 5 months, will be 30–40% of the salary plus the full amount of the turnout. So I wanted to make sure that it's not quite a strict ratio. There's going to be an initial upfront costs that will get hit with that first year when we first start. So just want to let you know about that. Okay. Anybody else got any other questions? Trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody who's got a hand raised.
Yes, Mayor, I've got one.
Commissioner Walker, Johnny Walker.
Yes, I believe one of our obligations to our citizens and constituencies is to serve and protect. And this is one of the things that have been sorely lacking in our county. And I just believe that we need to move forward with anything that will help and protect the citizens of this county. That's it. So I'm for that motion.
Okay.
Well, I was going to make a motion, Mayor. Was his a motion?
No,
I think he's in favor of a motion for it.
All
So
right, I will.
just a sec, hold on. Commissioner Goodrow, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment that if we move forward on this, we need to be committed to it because there's several things in play. That's the employee. Even if you put a contract in front of them, I don't know if there's going to be good retention with a contract of only 3 years. They don't know their future. We're already dealing with step pay programs in order to keep folks already in the full-time positions that we have in public safety. And also the citizens. If we're going to do this, we need to be committed even after the grant if we don't get a renewal on the grant. So I think that needs to be taken into account because I just don't think the citizens would like to know that we have a 13-man full-time fire department. And then after 3 years, it's pulled out from under them if we don't have a funding source. That's all.
Okay. Anyone else, any other comments? All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner.
Yes, Commissioner Reeves.
Commissioner Reeves, excuse me.
Yeah,
yes.
My problem is we don't have a funding source yet. I mean, we just, that concerns me. I mean, you know, long story short, 3 years from now, what we're saying, if the funding source or we can't afford it, we're going to fire 13 county employees or lay them off or whatever. So I'm deeply concerned with the lack of a funding source.
Anyone else?
Mayor, this is Commissioner Sills again.
If
we make the motion to approve applying for this grant, we would have the amount of time that the grant is being heard to come up with a funding source, at which time we would have to vote again as to whether or not we accept the grant and move forward.
Yes.
Is that correct? So could the motion tonight be as simple as we're going to commit to applying for the grant and know that we've got some homework and some work to do on a funding source going forward?
Yes, I think you can probably do that. The language in there that I have to sign off on this to get this says that I've got authority to apply for the grant and that funding has been allocated for it. It doesn't say you have to actually sign off and accept the grant, but just that we've gone through this step. So this is a little bit different than I've been, you know, I'm used to having grants on fire trucks and whatnot. This is the first time I've had an employment grant, so.
Mr. Mayor, Leggett.
Mr. Leggett.
I'd like to make a motion that we apply for the grant and move this forward.
Second, Walker.
Okay,
Question, does that include the having to come back before us to be voted on whether to accept it if it's offered?
Commissioner Leggett?
Yes. Yeah. Put that in there as
Okay.
well.
I second Stan.
Just for a second as I write this down. Okay. Any other discussion? All right. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard. Sir? All right, Commissioner Lillard votes yes. Commissioner Logan,
No.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
No.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Abstain.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
No.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Bill Walker,
No.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins. Okay, does anyone wish to change their vote? All right, Commissioner Lillard changes his to no. Just one second. Okay, the vote is 11 in favor, 6 against, and 2 abstentions. Commissioner German?
All right, 6.22, Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. Our minimum contribution could be 1.23%, but I guess, Mayor, you're recommending 3.82%,
Yes, sir.
and that's been about the same amount we've had the last several years.
Yes, sir. I'm recommending a little bit higher amount simply because we were behind for a couple of years there, and this will help replenish it. Plus, such a large amount of TCRS is in the stock market that averaging this over a couple of years, those returns that look good now may not look so good next year, and us having a little extra money in there will make our rate next year hopefully a little bit more even. So that's my recommendation.
Now, the Budget Committee didn't see this yet, right?
No, sir. That came through.
Straight through, but I will make a motion, we approve that.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Powers, second.
Commissioner Powers made the second.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Carley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals.
Yes.
He was here somewhere. There he is. Okay. Commissioner Bill Walker,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins. Motion passes.
All right, Mayor, you sent out a budget amendment this afternoon on email. Do you want me to handle that or you want to do it?
If you would, since you've got that, if you've got that in front of you, I'll let you handle it.
Best I can understand, there's a bond that expired. Somebody put up some money to, if they had to build a road, and long story short, they didn't have to, and they're asking for their money back. A refund of $24,343.15.
Yes, sir.
And you've got it coming from capital outlay. Got 20,000 in that fund and taking some money out of the investment income line item to
Yes,
cover it
sir.
with
Yes,
zero change to the fund balance.
We did. The investment income was extra that came in, and so we were able to use. It didn't come from something we already had budgeted. So, and just a little bit more information on that. This was about 15 odd years ago. The amount, I call it a bond. That's probably not the correct word. It's probably more of a fee. That if they had some damage to a road, and it was only on a certain piece of road, and the Planning Commission and I think the Public Works are going to organize or cooperate on using it. I don't think it ever got to the stage where it required the addition. So anyway, the ordinance said that if it wasn't used within the first 15 years, that the developer could request return of it plus interest, which is what that budget amendment in front of you is for.
So you're recommending that we approve it, of course.
Yes, sir.
All right, I make a motion, we approve this.
Second.
Who made that second, please?
Norton.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question, Mayor. It's low.
Sir?
What road are we talking about?
This, Mr. Pittner had this. This is, it's subdivision in Hickory Width, and my understanding was the way the ordinance was laid out, it could only be used in that portion of the road in front of that one subdivision on a county road. And it amounted to just a few feet on one side of one road. It was a hard job to figure out how to make it work, because if you did it the way explained to me, you'd only go down a certain amount of feet, and then you'd have to stop because you weren't allowed to go any further, because that's not what the money was for. So consequently, it was never used.
Well, from I think I remember when that was, because what it was a subdivision that they built a house where they couldn't go through there, and I think we need to stop before we go up out through this, because well, he's saying, why don't we have something in writing so we can see? At least I want to see it, because it doesn't make sense to me for 15 years, and now here we are just getting something tonight, and I hadn't seen nothing on paper.
Okay, that was what the email this afternoon went out, and this is last minute, but they were working on it, and the developer wanted to move forward. Mr. Pittner asked to move it forward, and it looked like we owed it, because even if they decide to use the money now, the 15 years have run, and so they got the right to request it.
Well, they got the right to request it, but we also have the right to see what we spend taxpayer money, getting money back. That's what I look at, because we approve too much stuff up here and doesn't see it. It doesn't see stuff on paper. I like to see stuff on paper.
Okay. You can delay it. I don't know that we're going to be able to avoid paying it, but if you need to delay it one more month, you can do that.
Well, I'm not saying that don't pay it, man, but I just want to see what we are paying for. I want to see, because that's what I deal with. So you got contracts and stuff. John Pittner said that we owe this. He needs to give us something to show when it happened, why we owe it now, and what it.
Okay.
That's all. 9 times out of 10, I get no down on it, but that's just the way I feel about it. I'm gonna vote no on it, because let me see what we vote on.
Okay, let me see if I can throw something on the screen that may answer some of your questions. I'm not sure if it'll answer all of them.
I need to see something, man. Now that's me. I don't know about the other 18 numbers, but I want to see what wants to see what I'm voting on.
Okay.
So if somebody asks me, why do we do this, why do we do that, I don't saw it, and then I can say why.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let me, real quickly, I don't mean to take up y'all's time on this real quick, but I wanted to, if Commissioner Logan's got a question, somebody else may have a question. Give me 1 second. For those of you who may not, there was a letter that went out, and I don't have, apparently have a copy on my computer. I think it went out in the email. But this was the regulation that is being operated under. It's a frontage on improved roads, 4-103 roads. And then, anyway, just let me slide down, and so you can get a sense of, I can get it all on the same screen. This is the regulation that we're dealing with. And I'll just leave it up there for a second for those of you who may not have had a second. And this, like I said, this isn't giving you a description of exactly where it is, but this is regulation that I've been told that we're working under.
Commissioner Norton.
Highlighted portion is what's pushing this forward.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Norton.
Yes, if I understood you correctly, this is something that we would have to give him back anyway.
That's my interpretation of it. I don't think I think you
okay.
I can probably bring you more information, explain it, and have Mr. Pittner get in front of you. I don't agree that's probably a good thing, but I don't think we can avoid paying this back.
Well, can we put our attorney on the spot with this and let him research and make sure that that is the fact? And if it is the fact, then it pretty much shuts the door on it.
Okay, we can do that.
Mayor,
that's what I would.
Mayor, why don't we send this back and let's come through development and come back next month with it?
Yes, sir. No problem.
I withdraw my motion then.
Okay. All right, folks, I think that's all. I'll take that back. There's two other things we need to go over real quick. Commissioner German, anything else on your committee?
No, I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is audit committee. Commissioner Oglesby chaired that. Commissioner Oglesby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The audit committee met on May the 12th, with all members present. Commissioner German, Lillard, Steve Reeves, Miles Wilson, Mayor Taylor, and myself. First order of business, we held our annual election of officers. Next, we went on to review the audit findings, and there were minor accounting issues in the mayor's office and the sheriff's office, which were acknowledged and addressed. There were also 4 audit findings in the Office of Director of Schools. The audit committee voted unanimously to accept the audit recommendations and the necessary remedies. And that concludes our report.
Thank you. And that'll be entered into the record just so that that'll be comply with our own resolution. Next item on the agenda tonight is ethics committee. There's been an ethics committee since about, I think it was 2011. It really hasn't been very active, but we put new members on last year and we needed to put officers in place. So in your minutes, the committee of elected officers, and Commissioner Dacus was actually elected chairman. Commissioner Dacus, did you want to go through this just briefly?
I will. The ethics committee did meet on May the 18th. Present were Barbara Parker, county trustee, Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Sylvester Logan, Commissioner Jim Norton, and myself. We did hold our election of officers where I was elected chairman, Commissioner Logan was elected vice chairman, and we elected the Mayor Taylor as our secretary, who is a non-member of the committee, but he was able to be our secretary, I guess. We went over the process of complaint lodging, and we decided that the lodge would be addressed to the mayor's office with the ethics committee on it, and it would be placed in a file, and the chairman would then be notified and would pick that address, the complaint up and see if it needed further process. And that concluded our meeting.
Okay,
This is it.
thank you. Are there any other business?
Mayor, this
Sir.
is Willie German. What about the school budgets that Commissioner Dacus approved, or Education Committee approved? Do we need to do anything on that tonight?
No, sir. What they got was what I presented to you at budget that had not been approved, and they approved it. They had a number of good questions on it. You do have in your packet tonight the budget packet, which is a culmination of everything. There will probably be a little bit of additional cost on the school's BEP because they haven't issued a final one yet. I hope it's less, but in all likelihood, it may rise a couple of $1,000s, but not much. With having been accepted by the education and with the recommendations I've given you as far as spending on the growth in property taxes and also the one-time money coming from the state, I should be able to present you a better budget coming next month. Down at the bottom of your packet, there were a couple of things that we talked about. One was the ambulance department, and it laid out their pay schedule. And then again, that is that state one-time money, which is a grant from the state, that $800,000, and then the county growth split on the property tax so that you have those in hand. What next? If everything goes according to our calendar for next month, we'll have budget meeting as regularly scheduled. The week before County Commission, we'll have a joint committee to go over all the budget. And then at our June meeting, we'll be able to approve a budget for this next year.
Sounds good.
Mayor, this is Commissioner Oglesby. Do you need any guidance from us tonight as far as how to proceed with your budget before you present it to the Budget Committee and the County Commission next month?
Well, I'll take any guidance you've got. I'll be more than happy to. We're going into our fund balance, depending on how you want to look at it, somewhere between $600,000, $900,000. And with the economy in such an uncertain place with the sales tax, I think our property tax is going to be good this year. Well, fine this year. We've always had a high rate of return on that, but our sales tax, particularly how it affects the school board budget and how we fund portions of the public works. And I think public works depends on a lot of gas tax money. Some decent news recently on that, but we still got a couple more months before this time period we've gone through actually comes through and we see what we've collected. So if you got some avenues you want me to address, I think we need to be conservative this year, at least going forward. We can always amend it later, but this is 1 year I think we need to be very careful in what we spend.
Well, if you think it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion at this time.
Okay.
I would like to see you and Charles prepare us a balanced budget, which includes funding of the schools at the maintenance of effort. I'd like to see the ambulance pay adjustment plan that went through health and welfare included. The pay adjustment of 2% for the sheriff's deputies, that went through criminal justice and public safety. I'd like to see that included. A 3% cost of living raise for county employees. And this can be accomplished with no increase in property taxes and no more than $400,000 reduction in our 101 general fund balance. And I think this is just give you some direction, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
I stuck in it.
Okay, I heard the motion to
Logan.
Okay. 1 second. All right, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor Leggett.
Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Leggett.
What came out of public safety was that they would receive the same raise as all county employees, not to go less than 2.5%. So if we're giving 3%, we've got to give them 3%, is what we agreed to in committee.
In addition to the step raises that were approved.
Exactly, yes.
I think that's what I said. They were getting a 2% stipend or whatever you want to call it, and they will also get the 3% raise.
Okay.
Commissioner Oglesby, I don't think that's correct. They had asked for 5%, 2.5% cost of living, and 2.5% to go into a step program that they were going to develop. And what we agreed in committee was that sounded good, but if the county gave more than 2.5% cost of living, they would get whatever we give to all the employees, and then 2.5% holdback for them to develop their step raises. I believe I'm correct on that.
So you're saying it's 2.5% instead of the 2%?
Yes, sir. That goes into a step raise program for them to develop.
Okay, well, I'll amend my motion. I stand corrected. Is that right, Mayor?
I knew there was 5%, but I didn't know how he broke it down between the two. I know we talked about 2%, 2.5% at the committee level.
Yeah,
I thought it was 2 and 3, but that's, I mean, if that's what the committee passed, I'll amend my motion to that effect.
Okay.
So that would make it actually 5.5%, because they get 3% cost of living and then 2.5%, as Commissioner Oglesby has amended, to allow them to set up their step raise program.
And
I believe that was correct.
And let me expand on that just a little bit more. The cost of living would be across the board to all employees. That 2.5%, if the step raise, was not going to be across the board. It would be in a fund that would go against different positions. We haven't seen a breakdown of that yet. So, but that's going into a pot to be divvied up.
Yes.
I didn't want to make it appear that somebody's going to get a 5.5 or everybody's going to get a 5.5.
Right.
It's not going to be quite that way.
No, that you're correct. Thank you, Commissioner Oglesby.
Thank you, Commissioner Oglesby.
Any other questions?
Can you repeat the motion? I don't know where you are. 3%, 2%, 2.5%.
Commissioner Oglesby, would you do the honors?
Yes, sir. We're asking for a balanced budget, which will include the following: the funding of the schools at maintenance of effort, the ambulance pay adjustment plan that they recommended for their employees, the pay adjustment of, I stand corrected, 2.5% step adjustment for the sheriff's department, 3% cost of living increase for all county employees. And this can be accomplished with no increase in property tax and no more than $400,000 reduction in our general fund balance.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I hear the word balanced budget, but then we're going into the general fund 400,000 roughly. Is that kind of misleading a little bit? It's not really balanced if we're having to go into our 101. Am I looking at it wrong?
It's, if you go into your fund balance, it's probably not going to be balanced. You know, that's the way I look at it. But I'll bring back as close to a balanced budget as possible. And I think my latitude may be that 400,000 with a good attempt at a balanced one, if I'm interpreting that correctly. Commissioner Oglesby, is that right? Am I right on that?
Yes, sir. I would certainly hope you could do it without touching the 400,000, but the 400,000 gives you that option. You need it.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion. Commissioner Norton. Sir? No.
Norton will second that if you need the second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Oglesby, second Commissioner Logan. All right, this will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Bill Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnny Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins. Motion passes. Is there any other business tonight to talk about? All right, folks, if there's not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make
So
some
moved.
Got several of you, and I pick one of them as second. All those in favor, please hang up.